This is campsite 16, Borders of Brick, Lebanon. The starting was a story about a queen, a queen from South Pacific Island, a prideful queen that reigned. So the queen believed herself to be lovely in every way. She considered herself important of a higher value than everyone, in the island. She considered herself important and of higher value than the common folks dominated by her monarchy. One day, a ship reached her island, bringing many never before seen commodities to trade with the natives. Among the most amazing things brought to the island by the traders was a crate of mirrors. The native had never seen themselves and bought the mirror eagerly. One mirror was brought to the tropical queen when the haughty ruler first beheld her own reflection. She was stunned. She was ugly. She could see for herself that the mirror accurately reflected the image of her servant. Thus, the monarchy had no recourse but to believe the repugnant reflection in the glass was her own. Unable to alter her image and unwilling to accept that her subjects were more lovely than she. So what the queen do? The queen decided that all mirrors should be confiscated and destroyed. In this manner, she felt justified in continuing to promote herself as the most beautiful person on the island. So the story of this prideful queen may seem incredulous. We might respond with amazement that anyone could be so foolish. Anyone could be so foolish, certainly, even if this easily sovereign managed to break all the mirrors in the world. Still, she could not alter reality. Yet, perhaps, instead of merely scoffing at such monumental idiocy, we should take heed for ourselves. Many professed followers of Yahuwah are guilty of similar hypocritical foolishness. So the story teaches us that many professed followers of Yahuwah are guilty of similar hypocritical foolishness, refusing to see our own true condition, and it doesn't make us acceptable in Yahuwah's sight any more than breaking the mirrors. Following their rebellion at Ramon Perez, which is the camp before us, Camp 15, what Vivian and Delos did that. The children of Israel encamped at Lebna, the place of whitening or purifying. It was here that crushing began. The experience of being crushed may not sound appealing, yet it is only by crushing that we are humble. It is only by surrendering to Yahuwah's present experience that we are whitened or purified. If we reject Yahuwah's humble pressure, like the queen rejecting the mirror, the process which could have through whitening and purify us only whitewashes. The sepulture of our unsurrendering hearts. This is the lesson of Lebanon. So the history of Lebanon, as we can see from the map, is showing where Lebanon is. So Lebanon is called Laban in Deuteronomy 1:1. According to Strong's, this camp name is the same as Rebekah's brother's name in Genesis 24, verse 29, and also Numbers 33:20. Most likely, this was the ancient land of Abraham's kin, possibly where he sent his servant seeking a wife for Isaac. So Libnah or Laban was ancient Israel's 16th campsite since leaving Egypt. Not only do the names for the encampment refer to whiten and purify, but also the name suggests building brick borders. As we mentioned in volume 1, the leaders of Israel name each encampment based upon the experience passed through during their stay at this site. Libnah was the site of an ancient ruin from long ago day of Laban, but certainly Israel experienced a spiritual dividing of the multitude, a spiritual dividing wall, whitewashed yet filthy. Lebanon comes from the Hebrew root meaning white, which is often associated with purity. In this encampment or spiritual separation, where the true sons of the living Eloah were divided out from the nominal or appeared white, but not all were pure, like the piety of the Pharisees, which Yahuwah described as whitewashed sepulchres. The whitening of many was only a surface coat, whitewashed yet filthy. The leaders of Israel in the time of Yahuwah had an intellectual comprehension of Yahushua's action and power, but they had no humility, no repentance for sin, and no shame for their arrogance. The blindness persisted in the time of the early Christian church as well. For this reason, Paul called the high priest who had commanded him to be smitten a wall in Acts 23, verse 3. But I didn't bring the verse there. So we can read it. Acts 23, verse 3. Whitewashed yet filthy. Suddenly, such hypocrisy, like that which characterized the professed people of Israel all the way back to their wilderness ancestors, is dominate today. Blind pride causes Israel to reject Messiah. Many believe that if he were to come to this generation, most religious leaders could reject him still. This same blindness, which had typified the unrepentant heart of ancient Israel, is acceptable Christianity today. Numbers 14, 32 to 34. In spite of the unspecified detail of this sad account at Libnah, ample information is provided for us to gain insight and warnings needed for spiritual Israel in the last days. In fact, the messengers of the churches in Revelation chapter 2 and 3 seems in place to address same rebellious, self-righteous attitude which drove the masses towards their destruction. The rebel leaders in ancient Israel were punished by a plague, but according to the scriptures, a similar plague will also punish the rebellious whitewashed leaders in the last days. Submitted in the crushing. Here, we all know the story of Caleb and Joshua. Joshua's name is Yahusha, and we all know that story. The 10 scouts that around Joshua sent them. So here, Caleb and Joshua had faithful obey Yahuwah. They had surveyed the land of Canaan along with the 10 faithless scouts, but they had stood out against the doubting counsel of the other spies. Caleb and Joshua had encouraged the children of Israel to trust in Yahuwah. Surely they were heartsick when their words of Yahuwah's exhortation were rejected. It was so difficult enough for the faithless men to be sent back into the wilderness from the very borders of the promised land. But how would they have been for the guiltless and faithful? These obedient ones have stood among the normal masses. So we have to be obedient. If we don't be obedient, Yahuwah, when Yahuwah is punishing us, he will punish the whole people. Submitted in crushing. Continue. Their eyes beheld the glory of Yahuwah's promise. It must have been absolutely crushing to these faithful ones that now, through no fault of their own, they were backtracking from the borders of Canaan, leaving behind the land flowing with milk and honey. Indeed, the judgments of Yahuwah fell upon all the corporate body. It is ironic to note the difference between the two types of people who comprised ancient Israel. On the other hand, were the prideful doubters by whose sins the promise had been denied. On the other hand, there were the obedient faithful who were delayed in attaining the promise only because of their association. So then we come to the principle of corporate judgment. Some will ask, why did the righteous have to return to the wilderness along with the wicked? Why did Caleb and Joshua and any other faithful few have to go through the crushing experience of seeing Canaan slip from sight when they had remained faithful to Yahuwah? Herein lies an important spiritual principle. Yahuwah deals with people corporately. Within a corporate body, whether a family, church, or nation, the sins of the many are mitigated by the righteousness of the few, while the justness of the many is polluted by the impurity of the few. As Paul explained the 5th chapter of Romans. So it's Romans 5, verse 15, and Romans 5, verse 19. So examples of corporate judgment. The destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Genesis 18, 25 to 26, and then 32. Achan, during the overthrow of Jericho, Joshua 6, 18 to 19, and Joshua 7, 20 to 21. Then we can also see Joshua 7, verse 1, and then 12. It is because heaven judges us corporately, based upon attributes of the bodies to which we become joined, that we are warned to choose our corporate followers with great care. Forming a marriage and family is one way to create such a corporate body in acknowledgement of the seriousness of such a bond. Prospective couples are counseled. 2 Corinthians 6, 14 to 16, and Revelation 18, 4. Then 2 Corinthians 6, 17. And then we come to breaking the Sabbath. I made it red because it's very, very serious offense. So when people's hearts are in the state of rebellion, it becomes impossible to worship Yahuwah in spirit and in truth. John 4, 24. Thus, the ability to keep the Sabbath holy is beyond reach for an unrepented heart. Only holy people can truly keep Yahuwah's Sabbath holy. Considering the prevalent attitude within the multitude, it is no great surprise to discover that Sabbath breaking may have been a fruit of the Libnah rebellion. Sabbath breaking continue. So the Bible clearly indicates that parts of wilderness experience of the children of Israel included a rebellion against Yahweh's appointed time. Amid thunder and smoke upon Sinai, Yahuwah had instructed his people to remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Exodus 20, verse 8. We can find this detail in Hebrew chapter 4, verse 4 to 6. Some Bible scholars think that ancient Israel disregarded the Sabbath at Libnah. This is because the Hebrew 4 accounts explain that Israel has failed to enter Yahuwah's rest, a term referenced in the Numbers 15 accounts. Breaking Sabbath continue. The meaning of rest reaches much farther and deeper than merely setting aside a day to attend religious service. To rest from one's labor and join Yahuwah's assembly is more about spiritual connectedness than about church's attendance. The Sabbath is a sign, and we can see it Exodus 33:13, of being set apart for holy use. Yet, simple going through the motion of Sabbath, keeping doesn't sanctify one any more than merely wearing a Girl Scout pin make one a member. Perhaps the incident of Sabbath breaking did take place at or near Israel encampment at Libnah. As is demonstrated, the biblical order of events. The Numbers account says that the event followed the prediction. The rebel could wander and fall in the wilderness. Numbers 14:33 and Numbers 15:32-35. Disregarding Yahuwah's holy day has never been a trivial thing. We are not to do our own Yahuwah set apart time any more today than were the children of Israel then. The judgment against the man caught picking up sticks on the Sabbath certainly highlights Yahuwah's estimate of the crime. He who is the same yesterday, today, and forever, Malachi 3:6, considers Sabbath breaking a capital offense. Thankfully, we see that not all the multitude stiffened in rebellion. Some sought Yahuwah with contrition from a broken heart. This class was never in the majority. Nonetheless, presence in this sobering story is an encouraged shadow picture of final Israel. How is it today? Do the people who claim to be spiritual Israel guard the Sabbath time with their master and savior? Or do they carelessly, thinking perhaps that is a little thing, travel long distance, shop, eat in restaurants, read secular magazines, watch TV, or sleeping in the day away? Those who do not guard and keep and delight in communion with the Almighty on His holy day are building bricks borders of rebellion, pride, and unbelief. Such war are typical of that which will one day bear these professed Christians from attaining the ultimate promised land. Out from the self's will, masses lost in doubts and disobedience. Yahuwah calls His own humanity, obedience, and loving submission to the Most High will always characterize the true sons of the living Eloah. They are the ones, through few in numbers, who submit even under the most crushing of tests. These faithful ones, who will comprise final spiritual Israel, will obey Yahuwah no matter the cost. Whatever pleases their king is their highest joy. Thus, they will consider the Sabbath a delight, a precious appointment with the King of Kings. Isaiah 58, verse 13-14. So, in all summary, Libnah or Laban was the 16th encampment of Israel since they left Egypt. Its name means whiten and purify, but also means building brick borders. At Libnah, the multitude of Israel came to be more starkly separated, divided by humble submission to Yahuwah or by their prideful mutiny against him. If we reject Yahuwah's humble, the process which could have truly whitened and purified us will only whitewash our unsurrendered hearts. Those who were humble and faithful to Yahuwah were turned back from Canaan along with the murmuring multitude. The just suffered with the rebellious. Heavens always judge people by the corporate bodies with which they are enjoined. This is why Yahuwah wants us to choose our spouse, friends, affiliations carefully. We must not be a part of Babylon, or we will partake of his sins and receive of a plague by mere association. Sabbath breaking often characterize a heart hardened by pride. The longer rebellion persists, the less able we are to appreciate what heaven finds important. The end.